Watch this.
My message to Idaho legislators is this: do not take that away from us.
Doctors and medical students rallied at the State House today to oppose legislation that they say could change healthcare in Idaho for the worse. There are a few things we've come to accept during campaign season. Lots of polling texts and calls, campaign signs at every turn, and harsh, angry commercials that spread lies. Now, the last one is what two new bills is trying to target in Idaho, making it a felony to lie in a political ad.
People think that it was the federal government that started that. It was the Black Panther Party that set that example.
We're hopping over to our neighbors to the west for this week's edition of Beyond the 208, where we're going to learn about the first Black Panther Party outside of California and their groundbreaking community programs in Seattle, Washington. A 50-year-old medical education partnership could come to an end as Idaho lawmakers are considering cutting ties with the University of Washington. The university runs the WWAMI program, a medical partnership between 5 states: Washington, Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. 40 Idahoans get a state-subsidized seat in the program every year, but House Bill 176 would require other medical schools in the region to take over, in part because UW has not expanded the program recently, despite the Idaho legislature asking for more seats in 2022. UW says they're trying to expand, but there aren't enough clerkships in Idaho for students. Today, supporters of WWAMI spoke at the state capitol, one being a Meridian mom that says her son might not be alive if it weren't for a WWAMI doctor. Aspen Shumpert tells us the story.
I had a sign today that said a WWAMI physician saved somebody I loved, and that's Mark.
As Idaho lawmakers prepared to vote on ending a 50-year medical education partnership, doctors and patients filled the Capitol today with an urgent message. Saving WWAMI could mean saving lives.
Right now, UW, partnering with the WWAMI program, absolutely provides the top primary care clinical training in the country.
Anna Roy, a Meridian mom, was at the Capitol today, fighting for the doctor who saved her son's life.
He would just projectile spit, like just puke. And I kept going in and he was like, it's okay. At 8 weeks of age, his growth curve was just flat, almost falling off.
That's when she found Dr. Mark Uranga, a WWAMI-trained pediatrician who wouldn't give up until he found answers.
He said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get Jock better.
Jock was diagnosed with a severe milk allergy. Today, he's a healthy 6-year-old.
I didn't have to travel to Washington. I didn't have to go somewhere for that state-of-the-art technology. I'm in Meridian. I got to go to the Children's Hospital and have follow-up with a WWAMI-trained physician who knew what to do.
It's still a goosebump sort of experience. It is irreplaceable. And I share that with students at times.
For Anna Roy, the debate isn't about politics.
Are you going to care when your child's life is on? Are you going to care about any political thing or somebody who's here and knows how to save your kid's life? At the end of the day, that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, you may have an empty car seat if it's not. And that's how I feel. I have a thriving boy.
Sponsors suggested the University of Utah as an option to partner with instead of WWAMI because the school might be able to offer more spots. They see leaving WWAMI and taking a different approach would keep more state funding in Idaho and address the state's doctor shortage quicker. Critics point out Utah's legislature hasn't even approved funding to expand its enrollment, so there's no guarantee the school would accept more Idaho students. This House bill is waiting for debate on the floor.
And we know that it was actually supposed to go second in terms of the third reading calendar today. We did watch the leadership in the House put that towards the bottom of the calendar. So I guess we'll have to wait and see when it comes up. But when it does, it'll be a big debate.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Aspen Shumpert reporting on a Friday. Thank you so much. Something else in the State House this morning. Lawmakers are delivering on a 2024 promise to try and rein in election messaging and spending. And you may remember our reporting last year, lawmakers calling foul on extraordinary out-of-state funding for legislative races. It's a legit claim, too. This is not hyperbole. Idaho saw a flood of PAC and independent expenditures pumped into state politics at a scale that we have never before seen. And it's still a problem. So to curb the issue, there were a few bills printed today. One would make it a felony to knowingly lie in political ads.
You can't go into a crowded room and yell fire when there's no fire because people could get hurt, right? There's still boundaries on the First Amendment. And I think one of those boundaries is when you say things about people that you know are absolutely not true, and then you utilize that to pummel them. That's what this bill does. It creates a new felony.
A partner piece of legislation allows candidates who are the subject of false claims to submit those complaints to the Secretary of State. And if the Secretary of State finds that the claims are verifiably false, the party making the claim, they can try to explain what makes it factual, but all said and done, the Secretary of State would publish their official findings on their website. On election spending, a new bill was also printed to update Idaho's sunshine laws. Those were passed in the 1970s originally, and the proposal does a lot. But in short, it mandates more frequent campaign finance reporting, especially closer to Election Day. It simplifies that reporting, and it works to increase transparency and visibility on who is spending money and on what, all at a very fast speed. Secretary of State Phil McGrain explains.
I think Idahoans have a right to know who's trying to influence them in their opinions. And certainly we have some legislative races that really stand out, and you can see it playing out this session where there's a lot of pressure.
Our intention is to get the voters informed of where the money's coming from, who's spending it, and what it's buying.
So we're going to keep an eye on those pieces of legislation. We understand that lawmakers want them to work around the State House before committee, public testimony, and possible consideration. So, what was the other big legislation of the week? Well, we thought we'd get through it in this week's Legislative Wrap. Let's pick up the week that was on Tuesday. That's when lawmakers passed the paper to Governor Brad Little for final approval on creating a mandatory minimum fine, $300 per first-time possession of marijuana, 3 ounces or less. Those in favor of the bill say that the measure strengthens safety in Idaho. It's now up to the governor to sign it into law. Wednesday ended up being one of the most notable days of lawmaking in recent memory. First, the Idaho Senate passed House Bill 93, the controversial parental choice tax credit. It previously cleared the House. It's a refundable tax credit up to $5,000 for families who believe their student is best served outside of public schools. So yes, that includes a tax credit for families that want to send their kids to a private or religious school. The program is capped at $50 million in tax credits.
This bill is not the boogeyman. This bill is not going to defund our great public schools.
I argue it is a redistribution of wealth. This is government funding private education.
Legislation is headed to Governor Little as we speak, and phones in his office are ringing off the hook. Will he sign it into law? We will see over the next week or so. Over on the blue carpet on Wednesday, the Idaho House took up an aggressive effort to reform Medicaid expansion in the Gem State. The objective, adding 11 conditions for those using the program. Things like a work requirement, an enrollment cap, and limits on how long a person could be on Medicaid expansion. If all 11 requirements of the proposal aren't met, the state of Idaho would effectively repeal Medicaid expansion. Supporters of the idea say it's crucial to rein in out-of-control spending. Critics say the math shows otherwise, and killing expansion could cost Idaho more.
There's far too much waste. There's far too much fraud.
This is not a hard decision. This is a wise decision.
I think the intention is good. I think that we can work together to find solutions, but this is not it. This will repeal Medicaid expansion because it is not possible.
Legislation passed the House 38-32. It heads to the Senate for consideration. Later that day, Idaho took a step towards making the firing squad the primary method of execution. In recent years, Idaho has struggled to successfully administer a lethal injection execution, and that's a reason why lawmakers want to move towards firing squads. Idaho has also struggled to get their hands on lethal injection drugs, as manufacturers have moved away from selling those to the states. Supporters say justice needs to be carried out. So how would this work?
Likely strapped to a chair. And in this case, I know with the firing squad, there is methods that you can actually do it electronically.
The proposal heads to the full Senate for consideration. Finally, on Friday, lawmakers turned down an effort to identify country of origin and immigration status for students in Idaho public schools. It's a hot topic across Idaho and the country as serious conversations are had about immigration and legal status. Lawmakers on the House Education Committee questioned the motive.
This smells like undue discrimination, and it will get us all in trouble, and it will cost the taxpayers about $250,000 to litigate if this becomes law. So I would just say we slow down a little bit and make sure we know what problem we're trying to fix.
And that's a legislative wrap. Beyond the 208, hundreds of people gathered outside the federal building in Portland, Oregon to protest large-scale federal layoffs. We have their message to the White House just ahead. Maybe you have a message to send us. Don't be shy. Send us a text. Our phone number, 208-321-5614. Text us about just about anything, hopefully about the 208. But we'll get some of these live at the end of the show. Oh yeah, make sure to sign your name and hashtag the 208. Federal workers rallied in cities across the country on Wednesday for what some called a national day of action. It was a protest of the Trump administration's cuts to federal funding and notably staff. There were protests here in the state of Idaho, but we're going to take you beyond to Portland, Oregon, where hundreds gathered outside their federal building to send a message to the Trump administration. Catherine Cook at our sister station in Portland talked to a man who drove 5 hours to make sure his voice is heard.
No king, no crown, we won't back down.
Outside the federal building in Northeast Portland, a message to the Trump administration as mass federal layoffs continue.
You don't need to come in with a sledgehammer and knock everything down and disrupt people's lives and take their jobs away from them.
Patty Espy is a retired nurse. She's shaken by layoffs at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and National Institutes of Health. The federal agencies have lost about 5,200 workers as diseases like bird flu and COVID-19 bear down.
I worked back in the day when AIDS first came, and if it wasn't for the CDC and the National Institute of Health to help us, we didn't know what it was. We didn't know how to take care of the patients.
I was fired yesterday morning.
Dane Gallish drove 5.5 hours to be here. He was a botanist at the Immigrant Creek Ranger District in the Malheur National Forest, one of 5 people fired there so far.
My former coworkers who are showing up every morning to serve their country at the ranger station are living in fear, and they can't come and talk to you guys about this. So someone's got to.
It's scary. There's fear of backlash.
Rachel, a federal healthcare worker, helped organize this rally. She believes these cuts are impacting all Americans, not just the federal employees losing their jobs.
We are here today to remind the public of who we are, to celebrate what
what we do and to let this country know that we do want to serve.
The federal building behind these protesters is home to the Bonneville Power Administration. Since January, the Trump administration has cut more than 400 BPA jobs. Over the weekend, they restored 30 of those positions, jobs which could impact reliability or other important functions of BPA. Those here say it's a nod to the danger and uncertainty of these massive federal cuts.
And it's not my job, it's not the National Forest System. I am more concerned about our democracy.
Nationally, America's parks brought in $55.6 billion to the economy, supporting more than 400,000 jobs. Here in Idaho, 44 pay-at National Forest employees lost their jobs last week. In the state of Washington, there is already a trailhead closed because of the layoffs, and people can expect closed campgrounds, locked toilets, and unmaintained trails. Protesters are demanding no cuts to vital services, no mass layoffs, and they are calling for an end to the federal funding freeze. Once a powerful force in Seattle, the Black Panthers fought systemic injustice and uplifted black communities. What many might not know is that their legacy lives on in some of the most critical community services. For Black History Month, Facing Race reporter Sharon Yu from our sister station in Seattle shows us how a new museum is sharing the enduring legacy.
Black berets, leather jackets, raised fists and guns. These are all striking images of the Black Panther Party. Formed in California in 1966, the revolutionary organization fought for black power and protection.
We were the first chapter formed outside of the state of California.
Motivated by Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination and the killing of California Black Panther member Bobby Hutton by Oakland police, brothers Elmer and Aaron Dixon formed the Seattle chapter in 1968.
The Black Power movement was growing.
They rallied hundreds of locals to protect Black and brown communities.
Black Panthers up here with guns on the second floor.
The guns drew the attention of the federal government.
J. Edgar Hoover named us the #1 threat to the internal security of the United States. They called black hate groups. And so they assassinated Panthers. They attacked our offices. That's where the violence emanated from.
Their movement grew from self-defense to survival. They monitored police activity to protect Black residents.
That was our police alert patrol, where we armed ourselves with shotguns and law books to patrol police officers in our communities. We're coming up on the Panther office.
A quick tour of Seattle's Madrona neighborhood shows the group's impact beyond their right to bear arms.
That's where the Panther office was.
Their first office at 34th and East Union was just blocks away from the Dixon family home, where an idea turned into action. And in the backyard of that home, at this church, the Panthers fed hungry children.
2,000 kids a week, a hot breakfast out of 5 locations in Seattle, and thousands of kids across the country. We ended up embarrassing the federal government to launch free breakfast and free lunch programs. People think that it was the federal government that started that. It was the Black Panther Party that set that example. So we're headed to the People's Wall now.
Just a short drive from the church is their second office, commemorated by this mural at 20th and Spruce.
One of the things as I look on the wall, these are our fallen comrades that died here in Seattle. You'll see Carolyn Downs' name is up there.
The Carolyn Downs Family Medical Center is yet another legacy built to overcome health disparities.
We found out that the second highest infant mortality rate in the whole state of Washington was right here in the CD, which was 77% Black back then. We had no funds. We did it based on volunteers and donated materials. And we started a free medical clinic, and today it is still running.
It's humbling, it really is.
Brandy Taylor is the CEO of Seattle Roots Community Health, which runs Carolyn Downs.
I think about what they went through to keep those doors open for so long. It's powerful.
Taylor says the spirit of free health care for all resonates decades later. The clinic has more than 60,000 patient visits a year. Remembering the past is a vital part of that care.
Part of orientation for every employee, we're going to tell you what our history is. I don't know that I've seen anyone come in and not appreciate and really lean into that.
Nearly 50 years after the Seattle Black Panther Party disbanded, what's next?
We're building an interpretive and research center, Black Panther Party Seattle chapter.
Not far from its old stomping grounds of Madrona, at the corner of Yesler and 2nd, will be a way to share that history with the community.
The idea is to have a place where people, particularly young people, can come and learn about revolutionary movements, including the Black Panther Party, study and observe history. I think the spirit of the Black Panther Party is relevant today, that can guide the development of a new organizations that can speak to the needs of the community.
With photojournalist Rachel Kim for Facing Race, Sharon Yu, King 5 News.
All right, we've got some comments to end the show, some good ones too. All right, Laura in Boise writes, with the new bill on lying on a political ad applied to a presidential ad, too bad they didn't have it last year. So I read the bill, and the way that I interpret it is, yes, if a presidential candidate for some reason wanted to come to Idaho and they wanted to file suit underneath this law, I believe that they would have the ability to do so. Would they actually do it? It's a good question. But Laura, good question. Appreciate that one. Next, the WWAMI questions. WWAMI was a solution to an in-state medical school that did not nor does not currently exist. Student pay less for far better medical school experience, internship. The State Department of Education or any medical board can provide. MB and Eagle, appreciate the comment and some context there. Chuck in Boise writes, my brother-in-law graduated from the WWAMI program. It was an awesome school which enriched his career. Once again, the politicians are making decisions without input from doctors. Their decision is based on abortion only, which politicians are afraid to ask their constituency. Yeah, we've heard some similar feedback. If you actually read the legislation, nothing about abortion is mentioned in it, but lawmakers have said they have concerns about doctors in Washington teaching something that's illegal in Idaho. Can those of us without kids claim the $5,000 and donate it to our local public schools? It's our tax money too. Mark P., I have heard other comments like that, folks saying I would like my tax money for $5,000. M. Heck says, any update on the bill to stop daylight saving time at the state level? I know that it's kind of in a holding pattern. We'll see if in Congress in D.C. if they have an appetite for it. And I think we got one more. Just curious as what's happening with the chickens bill. The chickens bill is waiting a hearing in the Idaho House Committee. It passed the full Senate. Time will tell if they actually hear it. Time is ticking. We'll see you next week.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.